Good evening, everybody. Shalom Aleichem. We are continuing over here in Chatzar Yosef. We're going to do the very end of chapter 9, section 2 right now. This is part 5 of the series, and then we'll close it, and then we're going to start the next one right away. So, just as a catch-up, we started to explain at the end of last week's lecture this difficult concept, trying to explain how opposites are actually the same thing. Or, I should say, they're much closer related than your brain leads you on to believe. The reason why we started talking about this is because in the Gemara about Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai and Vespasian, they were having a back and forth argument regarding why Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai took so long to come and speak to Vespasian to negotiate with him in order to to negotiate regarding the war. There was a war, there was a siege. The Romans were sieging the Jews. The Jews had no food. They were sieging Yerushalayim for 3 years, and this is all Masechet Gittin, of course, as you'll see in the earlier chapters. I'm not going to read the Gemara today because we're just picking on one point here. In the previous 4 videos, we already looked at the Gemara, so you can look over there if you want to be reminded. But here, I just want to bring this one deep point. In that discussion between Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai and Vespasian, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai said something to him, and he asked him a question. He put him on the spot. I'll take it back. Vespasian put Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai on the spot. And Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, he had the answer, but he didn't answer. He remained silent. And when he remained silent, the later rabbis, Rav Yosef, some say Rabbi Akiva in the Gemara, they described that situation regarding Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai's silence. They recited a verse from the prophet Isaiah about him. Chapter 44, verse 25. The verse over there says, Meshiv chachimim achor, that God holds back, or turns back the knowledge of wise ones, v'da'atam yisachel, and he stultifies their knowledge. He holds back their knowledge, so to speak. He turns it off for a second, makes it seem not knowledgeable. And that word yisachel, to make foolish.
Can I join?
Yes, that word yisachel, to make foolish. It's spelled Yud Samech Chaf Lamed, and that the root of that word is Samech Chaf Lamed, which means foolish. Now we explained how the letter Samech and the letter Sin in Hebrew can be interchanged, and many times the meanings are the same. We gave a few examples last time. So therefore, if you replace the Samech in the word Sechil or Sechel, Samech Chaf Lamed, with the letter Sin, you get the word Sechel, which is a common word that we use even in the modern Hebrew, Sin Chaf Lamed, and that means intellect, that means smart. So therefore, it seems to be opposite meanings, right? Sechel, meaning sin chaf lamed, with the samech, samech chaf lamed means fool. Sin chaf lamed means smart, intellect. Opposite meanings. And this is a problem because usually we said that whenever you change the samech for a sin, it should be the same meaning. So how do we explain this? Not only are they different meanings, they seem to be the opposite meanings, fool and intelligent. So we're going to do this one paragraph on page 106 over here on the top, and I'll try to explain this deep concept here. So now we had mentioned that substituting the letter samech with the letter sin does not change the meaning of the word, yet we also said that sechel with the samech means foolishness, and sechel with the sin means intelligence or wit, opposite meanings, which are two opposite meanings. This seems to be a contradiction, but let us try to explain here how it is not. This is one of the many examples in Lashon HaKodesh, in the Hebrew language, in the holy language, where the same root of a word actually produces two opposite meanings. Okay? Otherwise, in English, it's known as a contronym. A contronym is when one word has two opposite meanings. You have some of those in English also. One example we gave last week was the word peruse. The word peruse means, if I gave you a book and you say, yeah, I perused it, that could mean either you skimmed around, or it could mean you really broke it down and read every single drop of ink in that book. Two opposite meanings.
Or condone, I think.
I don't condone. Yeah. Condone means I don't agree with. You look at the context. To condone means to support something, but it depends on the context. We'll see. But the point is here, this word sechel is also one of those examples, as we try to explain here. This can be abstruse, which means difficult to understand at first, but after some thought, it becomes apparent that the opposites are actually one and the same. They're the closest thing to each other. When thinking of opposites, the mind bypasses their association and automatically focuses on their apparent dissociation. You know, I have a book at home for my kids. There's no words in the book. It's just for a book for little kids to look at, to get used to looking at books. And it's a picture book only. And over there, on both sides of the page, you have opposites. So they show you a sun and a moon and day and night, hot, cold, etc. All these things, right? Open, close, inside, outside. So by doing that, we are training the kids that opposites are different things. Very, very different things, right? And that's how our mind automatically thinks. But they're actually a lot closer. How do we explain this? The truth is that opposites are much more closely related to each other than any other thing. This is true for two reasons. Reason number one, firstly, all antonyms, which means a pair of words that are opposite, stem from an overarching concept that combines them but is yet specific. For example, the opposites hot and cold, those two words, they're opposites, you agree with me, right? They're antonyms. They connect, nevertheless, at their parent concept of temperature, meaning they're both describing a temperature. So when I say temperature, temperature is an umbrella term for hot and cold, correct? Yet temperature is a more specific term, category, versus a more general category, like a much broader category out there. For example, adjectives. If I give you a category of adjectives, of all the adjectives in the world, it's a much bigger pool of words. A lot more versus temperature. Under temperature, what's there going to be? Hot, cold, lukewarm. Maybe 3.
Celsius, Fahrenheit.
But that's a type of temperature. That's different. Well, you can put that under there. That's a measure. Fine. That's a unit. Right? He was just talking about broad. But by adjectives, it's much more words. So you see, hot and cold are also adjectives. But you can also put them under this smaller umbrella of temperature. So they're more specific and closely related to each other. Let's go further. Secondly, the second reason, antonyms, opposite words, are two concepts describing the same type of thing. The only difference between them is their intensity. And intensity, the magnitude of it only seems different based on perception. Yours, mine, someone else's, God's, right? For example, simple example. The words long and short, you agree with me, are opposites, correct? Good. But they are both describing the same type of thing. What is that? Two-dimensional size. If we're thinking about a line, a short line and a long line, they're both describing, both words, short and long, describing a line. But when you introduce something else to that system, right? You have a short line and a long line. You're looking at two lines. One is shorter than the other, so you're like, that's the short one, that's the long one. Using opposite words, opposite terms. Fine. Now you introduce a third line to the equation, to the system, to the picture, which is very long. Much, much longer than the first one you called long. All of a sudden, both the original two items that were called long and short, the original two lines, they become deemed short. Now you call both of them short in comparison to this very long line. Thus, after introducing the concept of very long to the equation, the original thing that was called long, right, has become conceptually equivalent to short because it's short in comparison to this. So now you're using the opposite terms to describe the same thing, the same item. First it was called long, you bring this thing in now, oh, now this is short. Those are opposites. Oh yeah, those are much closer than you thought. Get it? It's hard to explain this way. I went over this paragraph many times with Danny also to make sense of this. And so is the case for any pair of opposites, right? This is just an example, short, long, but you can do this with any pair of opposite adjectives. The magic of Lashon HaKodesh, the holy language, is that it bonds this entire concept, everything we just explained, in one word. Into one singular word, it's all there. Thus, when considering the word sechel with the samech, which means fool, which is equal to sechel with the sin, as we said, samech and sin are many times interchangeable. In our Gemara, when Rav Yosef speaks about Rabbi Yochanan ben and quotes that verse in Yeshaya, it says, Da'atam yisachel. God makes their knowledge of Chachamim sometimes yisachel. He makes them seem dumb. We can explain the following way. A sage's cognition is, in comparison to a fool's, is quite apparent. There's a difference between a smart person and a not so smart person, correct? But either one of their intellects, in comparison to God's, is not even a contest. Similar example to the short, long, and very long, right? From the perception of God's infinite wisdom, they are both considered foolish.
You brought this up for what?
They're both yisachel.
To show that everyone's on the same level or something?
Hold on. Even the sages, to a certain extent. This may be a secondary meaning of the verse that we spoke about, Yeshaya, Isaiah 44, 24 to 25, when it says over there, I am Hashem speaking in that verse, V'da'atam yisachel, and God stultifies the knowledge of wise ones, meaning that even a sage's wisdom, even a wise one's wisdom, is considered yisachel, foolish, from the perspective of Hashem. Thus, basically, the root word, sechel, however you want to spell it, with samech or a sin, what it really means in its core is level of cognition. It doesn't just mean fool or intelligent or intellect. It is describing a level of cognition, a person's level of his mind, which varies based on perception and comparison. That's why sometimes it can mean.
I guess too.
But that's why sometimes it can mean foolish, as we saw before, and sometimes it can mean intelligent. Now today, the modern Hebrew applies the basic simple meaning of the word as intelligent, sechel. But there's sometimes, as we saw, it can mean fool. So we explained that it just is describing a level of cognition, which are two opposites, but are really describing and measuring the same thing, which is the level of cognition. Which, based on the perception of comparison, it is a contronym because it can mean both smart and stupid. That was basically what we wanted to say at the end of that chapter. Deep concept that requires some review, but that's the end of. Well, to you, you're a smart guy.
No, I'm saying I thought it was something even deeper than that. It seems kind of.
Well, after I broke it down for you in this way, now it all makes sense. But try to explain it by yourself, it's not so easy. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen, Amen. That's the end of chapter 9, section 2.